This podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the podcast. I'm your host, Erica Lance. My amazing co-host today is C.R. Rice, and our guest today is Joyce Miller.
Yeah. Yay.
Okay, let's talk about what we're drinking. I didn't even open mine yet, but I have a little surprise. Oh, our podcast sponsor today, I'm going to remember this stuff eventually, is Skunk Brothers Spirits. If you use coupon code DWA10, you get 10% off your order. They are freaking amazing. But we have another sponsor that's coming up in the not too distant future. And if you do the YouTube episode, you'll see what it's going to be.
Huh?
And anyway, I decided to drink out of one of their glasses today. And
Okay.
I am drinking, once I pour this, I apparently can't do more than one thing at a time tonight. I am drinking Angry Orchard Unfiltered Hard Cider. I am enjoying this because it's not too ridiculously sweet. So,
I like cider.
yes. Okay, CR, what are you drinking with us today?
Okay, so mine's a little ridiculous. I had
You have a
rough day.
ridiculous drink?
I know.
No.
I had to completely rewrite one of my books today because I missed something. So I rewarded myself with a bougie drink.
Oh.
So this is homemade lemonade with fresh raspberries, and I have way too much vodka in it, but it's so good. It's really solid drink. And I think there was at one point when this whole thing started, there was also a sugar rim on it because my husband got involved, and anybody who knows him knows he is super extra. So if you want the full experience, you got to do the sugar and honey rim.
Put a sugar rim on it, and mine's just, I put it in a glass, which is Erica fancy for beverage. So, Joyce, what are you drinking with us today?
So I am drinking a Rivers Marie Pinot Noir from 2020. And my husband collects wine, so he graciously gave me that bottle, and I'm drinking it in a Grays and Grapes glass.
Ooh,
Very
you're
nice.
even more fancy than I am. So that says a lot.
Well, you know, we try.
Yes, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Somebody's got to be fancy on this show. It is not
we don't do
it. No. Okay, so Joyce, for the audience at large that doesn't know you, what do you write?
So I just started writing in my second life. So I worked for 30 years at a nuclear physics laboratory. And
That's new.
And I
We're just
designed.
gonna gloss over that.
I'm going to let her finish her
do
whole
at
thing,
this?
but we're going to have to go back to that. We're going to come back to that.
We'll come back to that. And when I retired in 2019, I always liked to write and wanted to write from when I was a little kid. And so I decided to write a historical fiction novel based on the true story of my granduncle who played baseball in the 1910s, 1920s. And so right when I retired in the fall of 2019, and then of course in 2020, everything kind of shut down. And so I did some online workshops and things that got me started to write the book. And then I think I have to say it's one of the things that got me through the pandemic, because I had something to do every day, and I was able to write the book in about a year.
Very cool. And the name of this book that you have written?
So the name of it is Joe Harris, The Moon. So of course, my granduncle's name is Joe Harris, and his nickname when he played baseball was the Moon. And so hence the title. I have it.
So is this?
Oh, you can
like a
hold it up, please.
biography,
Shameless
or did you
self-promotion.
So what was that, CR?
Was it like a biography that you wrote, or is it like a twist with some fiction in it?
It's so basically the story is true. I called it historical fiction because I filled in things that, I didn't really know for sure about. Maybe he stayed in a boarding house here or there, and I made up some characters that he could have met, but who knows for real. But a lot of it is true. And he started out working in a coal mine in southwestern Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up. And he started working when he was 12, because that's what they did back then. You went to school till you were in like 6th grade, and then you went to work. And it was like one of those company towns where the mining company owned the whole place, and everybody worked for the mine or worked some way to support the mine. And of course he hated it. I don't know who would like it, but he wanted to get out. And so every chance he got, he was playing baseball. And he was seen by a scout, and the scout had him go to picked him up and had him go to a couple minor league places to play. He played in Bay City, Michigan, and then he went to play in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And when he was there, he got scouted again by someone from the Cleveland Indians. And they picked him up, and he went to Cleveland to play. And then World War I happened. And from what I understand, they promised the baseball players that they would go to the war and play baseball to keep up the morale of the troops. But in the end, that's not what happened. They had to fight. And he proved himself in the war. And then they signed the armistice, and he was hitched a ride in an ambulance to get back to the debarkation point, and the ambulance wrecked. And his skull got crushed in, ribs broken, leg broken in a couple places. So he had to stay extra time in Europe to recuperate. And then when he came back right in the middle of the Spanish flu epidemic, which, we can all relate to now. And they thought he would never play again, but he fought to get back into it, and he went to play back for Cleveland. He had then he went to play for at that time there was not just the American League and the National League like there is today. There were all these little startup leagues that like companies owned. And so he went to play for one of those leagues because they threw in a billiard hall for him to mess with in the off season. So then when he wanted to go back and play for the other 2 leagues, he had to go kind of beg for his job back. And there's kind of a funny, like one of our family stories was that this Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who was this real tough judge, who was the baseball commissioner, said, well, maybe you got hit in the head when you were in the war, and that caused you to make some bad decisions. And so we're going to let you come back and play.
Oh, that sounds like a really fun story.
So he came back and went on to play in the World Series. He played in 2 different World Series, one for the Washington Senators and one for the Pittsburgh Pirates that played against the Yankees, where he played against Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. And of course, the Pittsburgh Pirates lost, but
Tradition.
he did go.
Hey, he was present. He was good enough to make it there.
And so all that part was true. That was like, I didn't really have to make up an interesting story, because that part of the story was true and interesting enough. So, he got married along the way and those kinds of things. Never had any kids. And
Don't give away the whole story.
Okay, sorry.
Have a drink. Don't give away. We'll have a drink. Don't give away the story. Okay, but we need to turn back the time here to when you said the words nuclear physicist. So you want to go back to that? You want to take a little jaunt as to what the hell are you talking about?
We just glossed over.
So yeah, so I did engineering and design work. And so, I think, well, probably happens to a lot of people. I mean, you go down a path, right? And then you think, you have kids and things work out that you stay there. And so, so I went to work for a couple different companies that made different kinds of vacuum products. So, one company made like freeze dryers for coffee and pharmaceutical dryers and things that they did under vacuum. So then this opportunity came up where I could work at this physics laboratory because they needed people who understood vacuum and cryogenics and magnets and things like that. And so so I went there, and of course it was a good place to have kids. It was working for the Department of Energy. There was a consortium of universities, and they managed this laboratory for the Department of Energy, and it's a continuous beam electron accelerator. And I worked in one of the.
And she wrote a book about baseball.
Well, I made
Right? Like you have all of these stories and you went with a grandfather's baseball story?
I mean, I may go back to this. I have a lot of
like the stories that you could come up with and present. You said cryogenics, like
Cryogenics.
freezing,
like freezing people's heads and things like that. But I mean, we didn't freeze heads, but we knew how to.
Oh my goodness, that is so much of a story right there.
That is so awesome.
I like how she's just like, yeah, so we particle accelerators, and I'm like
freezing heads and stuff,
Yeah. Every
big deal. Every day at the office, everybody goes through
listening.
this.
Well, and that's the thing. When I first went there to work, I thought, this is going to be crazy, right? Because this is like cutting edge stuff. But I came to realize that everybody puts one foot on the floor when they get out of bed, just like you and me. They're just people. And
yeah, they're just people who are freezing people's heads and stuff. I mean, just people like that. Joyce, I don't know what you're talking about. It's not, you're like, it's so simple. No,
it's so simple.
No, it's not.
No, listen, if you can play pool, you can do nuclear physics. That's all it is. So the
I feel like
now you're gonna have to
play pool,
explain
but
that,
I don't think I
pool.
can do nuclear
I should not be trusted with nuclear physics. Go ahead.
So we take an electron and we speed it up to the speed of light. We shoot it into a target, and the target can be like a piece of carbon, a piece of foil. So there's atoms, there's your basic chemistry. There's atoms, and in the middle of the atom there's a nucleus, and the nucleus has protons and neutrons in it. And protons are positively charged and neutrons have no charge. So there's no reason why, if you take two magnets and you put the same poles together, like those little Scotty dog magnets, do you remember those?
Yes.
And you push the two like poles together, the Scotties will flip apart, right? If you put the negative and the positive together, they stick together. So inside the nucleus, there's all positive charged, basically, because the neutrons are neutral. So why does that stay together? That shouldn't stay together. That should fly apart because it's positively charged. So we take this electron and put it into the nucleus, and it's just like shooting a cue ball into the into the triangle of balls, and the cue ball goes in and all the balls go everywhere.
All
And
right, well, I
that's-
have a new career path.
See, and that's what we did. We shot the electron into the target, and stuff would come out, and we would look at the stuff that came out. That was basically the job, with a few, different physicists wanted to do different variations of it, but that was it basically.
I feel like this is a very, very simplified version. But that if I showed up at the plant and said, so I talked to Joyce Miller and I know how to play pool, so she says I'm correctly armed,
They'll say, come on in.
and then I'm part of the experiments getting
And
cryogenically
then,
frozen.
and then you're part of the experiment, and you get your name on a whole bunch of white papers, and you're published, and you're a published scientific author.
Oh, that's
Erica, we have free weekends all the time.
See?
true. That's true. I think we would get in a lot more trouble than not and never be heard from again. That's
The
what I think would
greatest
happen.
the greatest scientific discoveries were done by accident. I feel
Exactly.
like
Science.
we got this. We can do.
And I believe there's a lab in the Pacific Northwest too. So I don't even think you have to come to Virginia. I think.
Oh, no, I'm closer to Virginia. I'm in North Carolina.
Oh, you're
Chelsea,
in North Carolina.
Florida.
Oh, well then, okay, then you guys can come to Virginia. There you go.
We'll come to Virginia. We'll knock on the door. We'll say, Joyce told us to come here. We know how to play pool. Let us
And-
in. Give us the
Okay.
white paper. Let's
And
make it
they'll-
happen. So, Joyce, you wrote this book in 2020, basically, right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
What are you working on now?
So I just finished. Now I have to tell you another story. So I just finished another. I've just finished a memoir that has nothing to do with nuclear physics because I'm saving that. So for 20 years I did greyhound adoption,
Oh,
and so two of the greyhounds that I adopted, I went on to do a dog sport called canine freestyle, which is also known as dog dancing. And so
what?
I'm sorry.
Start Googling. CR, Google immediately dog
Okay.
dancing. This needs to be.
canine freestyle dog dancing, look it up. You'll love it. She's seeing it.
You're speechless, and that I don't even know when that's ever happened before. Like,
It's just there are competitions.
There
are sports.
competitions.
This terrier won last year. Is he gonna make it this year? I
Is
don't
he?
know. There's
Is
a whole
he?
story.
okay, so
So
how does one get into dog dancing?
So it's in my memoir when you read it. But how I got into it was I had a friend who did dog training, and I trained this little mixed breed dog to like sit and stay and all the things you train a dog to do, right? Are you guys dog people or?
Yeah, Chelsea has a dog. I
Okay.
don't know on the
Yes.
training thing how that's working out, but
Oh, he's a brilliant freaking dog.
Okay,
Except he decided that he can hoard my socks and open my drawers, and now he steals ice out of the fridge. So that's fun at 2 a.m. Think somebody's
okay.
breaking in.
You think you hear the it's like the slot machines, right?
so and I used to have a dog.
And it sounds
but
like breaking glass.
Oh,
I'm getting a new puppy this month, an
Oh,
English
puppy.
Are
Shepherd.
you kidding?
very good.
A little English Shepherd puppy. It's a little black and white puppy. It's super.
Oh, how
Get a
adorable.
golden retriever, they're easy.
English Shepherds are pretty easy too from that aspect because
Yeah.
they're work dogs.
And they
Okay.
can be trained. Greyhounds are not so easy to train because they either want to be running or sleeping. Kind of in between is not good for them. But anyway, I trained this little mixed breed dog, and at the time you couldn't really do anything other than that with a mixed breed. You had to have a purebred dog to do any kind of dog sports like agility or rally or whatever. And so my friend said, well, we could try this canine freestyle because they do it in the UK, and there's all kinds of competitions, and you don't have to have a purebred dog. You just train your dog to do the things they need to do, and you go on. So you train them to do some simple movements like spinning and circling around you and backing up and coming towards you. Then you pick a piece of music and you choreograph what you trained them to do to the music so it looks like they're dancing. And like CR said, there's competitions, and you get scored for artistic interpretation and technical score. So just like pairs ice dancing, you get a score for how you artistically interpreted the songs and the dance. And then you have to do a certain number of technical movements to move up in the ladder, like how the ice skaters have to do a triple salchow or whatever. The dogs have to do certain things.
I found the outfit website. I just want to get them to make my dog walk around in a tux.
See, and see there's
so bad.
There's different organizations, and some let you dress up the dog and some of them don't. Just depends on which organization you go with.
But then you have a pair of them, like you can have like a pairs of figure skaters, you can have two of them at the same time.
Well, no, you're the other part of the pair.
Oh.
So you're in the ring with the dog when you're dancing, and you're cueing them to do the things they need to do. So you're like the other part of the pair.
They have dance groups, Erica. I'm gonna send you some links.
Oh my God.
You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. You're gonna want to do it with your new puppy. And I'm gonna
if I walk upstairs and tell Jonathan, fun story, hon. Not only are we gonna do obedience training,
but
we're gonna have a competitive dance dog.
They have people, these videos, like you have to send your dog, like, so I was looking, obviously, Google. They have trainers to teach your dogs how to dance, and you have to send audition videos to them so they can decide whether or not they want to teach your dog how to dance.
Yes.
And then they have these dance groups that you get to go into, and they all choreograph together, and you just have a bunch of.
So when is this book coming out, Joyce? Because
this book is coming out in June, and it's called Look, You're Dancing. That's the name of it. That's coming out in June, and it's a memoir, so it's really different from the historical fiction. So it's kind of the story of how I got into it. And then I also kept up with the greyhound adoption, and I worked with them, and I did home visits, like people who want to adopt a greyhound. I would take my dogs to their house because sometimes people wouldn't realize how big they are, and they'd want to get one, and they'd live in a little tiny apartment, and then they'd realize that maybe that wasn't such a good idea. And I also did, if somebody took a greyhound and then for any reason they had to give it back, if they had a kid and the kid was allergic to it, or they moved or whatever, we took the dogs back, and I did that too for the greyhound adoption group. So the memoir's all about that, because you wouldn't believe the stories that people tell you when you go in their house and to see if their house is a good fit for a greyhound or not. So
I've done human resources for 25 years, so yeah, it would take quite a bit to surprise me.
You might know. Yeah, sometimes they would. There's your dog. We could teach that dog to dance.
I don't know how he got in the back door.
He's a Houdini.
Your husband opened it. We just watched it on the camera.
I didn't see it. I was watching her. It's here. I just saw all of a sudden he was like right in my face, and I wasn't paying attention because I was listening to Joyce talk, and apparently my husband's trying to sabotage me.
Yes, I think that's exactly what's happening. And that is a writer's version of just what went down right now with the dog being let in the back door.
We just know that he heard you talking about dogs, and so he let the dog in.
And dog dancing.
And dog
He
dancing.
doesn't like being away from me. So like
Oh.
if he's not near me, he whines.
Uh-huh.
So
That's the perfect dog for dog dancing, because that's when you get the highest scores. When you have a dog and a handler that are very well bonded and the dog doesn't want to leave the handler's side, that's when you get really good.
it's more like a one-sided bond.
No, there's no such thing.
That is not true, gals. That is
I
not.
love that dog. Don't get me wrong, but there will be times that we forgot to lock his cage at night because he chooses the cage. We don't. It's huge. It's ridiculous. But like one day I woke up and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And he was just panting in my face, and like that's my line. I have a line.
And you
that's
just
the line.
lost it.
Hot, sweaty breath on your face is the line.
That's what woke me up. It was like 3 a.m. I was like, "What the."
What is this?
That's my line. I don't think I could be a dance partner. I don't even dance. So like I don't think I could dance with a dog. It sounds exciting, and I definitely saved a couple videos that I'm going to be sharing later.
Very good.
Hashtag dog dancing, hashtagging we found CR's line.
Yeah.
And with that, we're going to take a quick break and be right back with Drinking with Authors.
Sample locally sourced, quality distilled spirits in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge. At Skunk Brothers Distillery, we're family owned, brewing small batch grain to bottle spirits, just like our grandfather did back in the Prohibition era. From handcrafted bourbons and moonshine to flavored blends and cordials infused with local fruit. Join us for a tasting tour and buy Skunk Brothers spirits straight from the source.
It's all in the family at Skunk Brothers Spirits, located in Stevenson, Washington.
Okay, so Joyce, that one's coming out in June, the book, and we found Chelsea's line, no sweaty dog breath in her face.
No.
What are you working on now then?
So my next book is going to be another historical fiction. And again, I'm going to go way off of, these things that I could write about. But I'm going to write about a woman artist who lives in Northern Virginia. Well, she doesn't live there anymore. She's dead now, but she lived in Northern Virginia. And she was married to an American Impressionist painter. And when she got married, she kind of quit her own art. So she didn't paint anymore. And so I just think that's fascinating. And so I want to explore that and write about that. And it's the same time period as my granduncle's baseball book. So I kind of have some of the research done already. And so I want to write about that.
Wow. So that begs to ask, so you decided to write and you're writing. You were not like, I kind of think I'm going to write. You're like, no, I'm writing all the time and doing. Do you have a list of books you want to write?
Not past this one. Maybe books, but
what is a maybe book out of curiosity?
Yeah.
So I have a couple artists that I'm interested in writing about, and so I may do one of them. And then again, I think so. When I wrote the memoir about the dog dancing, I was torn between writing one about physics or writing about the dog dancing, and I chose the dog dancing. But I could also write about 30 years in a nuclear physics laboratory as a woman, one of the few women that were there. So that's awesome.
I think that's cool. So you're writing more true life stories. Was that always your intention, or did you want to write? I know you're kind of writing a little historical fiction because you don't know, every little person your uncle met. And it's not like he downloaded his entire universe to you before, which I think is great. And I think there's a little bit of that for the most part anyway, with a lot of biography type fiction, because, there's only so much one can know.
And I didn't want to do like little footnotes and things like that. I did enough of that in technical things I had to do. And so I wanted to have a little more freedom. So
That makes sense. What about actual like real fiction? Like, have you, we're gonna have to go back in time again. When did
Okay.
you have your desire to write to begin with? Because it sounds like you had a desire, but then had life happen and stuff. So when did it begin?
So when I was a little kid, 7, 8, 9 years old, was always writing stories, and I wrote. What I would do, and maybe this is what led me to how I write now, but I would pick something in our house, like a vase or something, and I would make it be alive, and it would observe what was around, and it would collect the stories of what was going on around it, which
Oh,
was
wow.
really our life, right? And so that was kind of the stories I used to write when I was little. But then I got out of it as I got into junior high school and high school. I got put into a gifted class and accelerated math, accelerated science, and I was good at that, even though I didn't really like it. And so I got pushed in that direction because I was good at it. And so, people were like, you don't need to be a writer. You could go and do physics. You could go and do mechanical engineering. That's better. And so then you do that. And of course, the money's really good. And I used to call it the golden handcuffs, because you would, they paid, good money, and I had kids, and, so I just kind of went that way. But then when I retired, I thought, I'm going to go back and do what I always wanted to do.
That is awesome. And I understand that, especially, in a time when, not that it was ever easy necessarily to be a female in it, but there was definitely some times, I'm sure, throughout your career where they were very happy to have at least one woman on the floor so they could go, look, we have a woman,
Here's our woman. Every opportunity you'd get dragged out, like, here's our woman. Look.
Yeah, that is fascinating. So it took you a year to write the book. Do you think that's because of all the research and stuff, the first one?
Well, so I have a cousin who did a lot of the baseball research, because I was not I like to watch baseball, but I wasn't into it the way he was. And he had gone, like, he would go to excuse me, he would go to libraries, and this was, of course, before you could like look things up on the internet. He would go to libraries and sit and look at microfiche of old newspapers and see if they wrote any articles about him, and he collected all that stuff. So that was a lot of that part of it was done for me. And so at the beginning of the pandemic, there were all these online workshops, and people were trying to figure out, how are we going to live, and how are we going to manage all this. And I guess I was searching on something, and I found this free 2-week long. It was called Finding the Writer Within. It was like this workshop where different writers and different spiritual coaches and things like that, and every day they'd send you a video and you would watch the video. And so that's kind of how I started it. I thought, well, I have all this research that my cousin did, so I can use that. And I made a outline, because he had every year he did this in this year, and this in this year, and this in this year. So I had all that. And so then the same woman who put that on then had a paid workshop called Book in 90. And so once a week, they would meet on Zoom, the group of women. Well, I think there was one guy, and everybody was trying to write a book, and we would support each other. And so basically I got the first draft done in that 90 days. And then I just had to, get it edited and all that stuff, work on it and that.
Well, that is, so I have two questions that have sprung to mind.
Okay.
How did you get published?
So it's self-published. I published it with Ingram Sparks.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And what about your family? What has your family thought of it?
My family's been thrilled with it. And just so it's been out for a year now, and just within the last month or so, I've had people like come out of the woodwork that are distant relatives, and I'm not real sure how they find it. But so I had one guy, so you know how people find you on Instagram, and like men find you and they'll send you these notes and go, you're beautiful and I think you're lovely and why don't we be friends? And I just delete those right away. So I got a message like that, and not saying I was beautiful or anything, but from a man that I didn't know. And so I just deleted it. And then he sent me another message and he said, I think we're related. And so then I started to talk to him on Messenger, and he said, I found this book, and like however my great grandma was this, and this uncle was related to this nephew or whatever. And then he said, yeah, my grandpa was your granduncle's nephew. And he said he used to tell us stories about Uncle Joe taking him in the dugout with Babe Ruth, and they would eat ice cream in the dugout. So, and I was like, dang, I wish I would have known that. I would have put that in the book. And then it wasn't but a week or so later, this other guy got in touch with me a similar way. I think he wrote me an email on my website, and he said, yeah, Uncle Joe had a endorsement deal with a clothing company in Pittsburgh, and every time he hit a home run, he got a free suit. And he would take their grandfather, who was his nephew, he would take Neith to the store and sometimes he would let him get the suit, and because it was like ready to be the Depression, things were winding down. And so he said and he would get my grandfather got a couple free suits from him hitting home runs. And so it was things like that and they're just like thrilled with the book. So, and who knows who else is going to contact me and tell me some more stories.
Wow, that's
so is that
awesome.
fun? Is that exciting for you?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
People that knew your grandfather coming forward and like talking with you.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and it's and it just makes it come more alive, to hear the stories, because he was a fascinating person to begin with, and I never knew him. He died the year I was born, so I never knew him, but some of my other cousins even met him. So
what made you choose to self-publish it?
I didn't want to wait. I was impatient with my first book, and the person that ran the book in 90 thing, she encouraged us to self-publish and kind of held our hand and walked us through it, which made it a lot less scary than it would have been otherwise, because some of the things I just wouldn't have had a clue of what to do. So I did talk to one agent, and he was kind of interested, but then he gave me a no. And I know then you're supposed to, try with 99 other agents, but I thought, oh, well, he said no, so I'll just do it myself. But now I realize, now you have to do all the marketing and all the other things that aren't writing.
Well, and unfortunately, I think until you get to a certain point, you have to do that anyway. Like 99% of authors have to do that. There's only 1% that the publishing companies, in general, I should say, do a lot of marketing for. Otherwise, it doesn't matter even if you get a Macmillan contract, they're not necessarily going to publish, do a lot of marketing, if any, for you at all.
And a lot, even the people that they do marketing for, they get them marketing managers where like the author is paying for it. So it's not the same as it used to be where, you know, you get signed and you have this great thing and they take care of everything. You can be in that creepy cabin up in the woods and like drink all day. They don't do that anymore.
No, they don't. A creepy cabin in the woods. Where the hell are you? Anyway.
I've been doing a lot of weird research lately. So like it's all been very dark.
I'm a little afraid of what you're researching.
Yeah, the end of this round's gonna be.
Oh my God. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know. Okay. So let's talk about your little, yeah, I mean, that cover on the book, you can hold it up again if you'd like to continue shameless self-promotion. Did you do that or did you have somebody do that for you?
I have a friend in the greyhound community who's a graphic designer, and he took this idea like right out of my head. I don't know how he did it. So this is Joe's actual picture, and you can see where his face is kind of caved in on the side where he was in that wreck. And then this is the moon. And so I said, could you think you could put his face in the moon, and could you like put like some baseball-y kind of text or font? And he was like, sure. And so he came up with this, and then we decided to make it like a sepia tone, like old, 1920s. So yeah,
it's pretty brilliant. I'm not gonna lie. I like it.
Right.
It's well done.
Right. Okay.
I will give points. Very well done. I've seen many covers from self-published.
It's different, and I think
what were you thinking when you did that?
I think it's so different. I think it almost makes it stand out.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And if for I've gone to a few like again online things, and they're always like, you have to pick what shelf your book is going to sit on and things like that, and the cover needs to look like the other covers that are in that genre, and I suppose that's true, but I just
I
like,
don't know.
I think it does though. I think when it comes to things like that, I think it does. As a publisher, hold on, as a publisher. No, I think it does. I think you're in a good space there because yes, I do agree with what they're saying. If you're going to write a high epic fantasy novel, more than likely it's going to have a sword or a fucking wizard or a dragon or a wolf in an Arctic atmosphere. Like it's going to have one of these things that is a tip, but it's not bad because your readers, especially your readers, when we're talking about thumbnails, like, so you've got that little thumbnail that somebody's looking at like on their phone or on the computer. Generally, they don't have the whole cover unless they click into it. So you've just got to create something where somebody goes, oh, okay, that's the type of book I'd like to read. And if you talk to readers, they know, kind of like the whole thing with like paranormal romance books, where there's always a scantily clad, whether it's a shirt being shown. Okay, your dog uses that door. I need you to get used to it. It's embarrassing for everyone right now. Or depending, I kind of scantily clad female, more usually, like a little
with
tanky top type thing. But you look at the cover and you go, yep, that's the type of book.
That's what I want to read. That's my book.
Yeah.
And I think this says baseball, it looks baseball-y.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
So
no, I think it absolutely does. Okay. CR, questions?
I know that you're doing all these historical, and I think Erica kind of touched on it. Do you want to branch out to other genres, or are you more focused on the historical, the biographies and things like that?
Yeah, I kind of like the historical things. So that's probably after I get done with this memoir, which I'm also self-publishing. That's where I'm gonna go, I think.
I like it. I like it. So where do you write? I mean, COVID has kept us all inside houses and stuff, but where do you find your mojo? You've been a parent, so you're used to operating around a lot of noise, but does it need to be really quiet? What is your ideal writing situation?
I'm a morning person. I get up really early. Of course I have a greyhound right now. So we get up at like 5:30 and I walk him and then I come back and have my breakfast and then I sit down and write, usually for, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours in the morning. And I try to one day a week spend that time doing some kind of marketing stuff, if it's sending emails or putting stuff on social media or something like that. And then the other 4 days or sometimes just 3 days, I'll write during that time. So, this is where I sit. This is my little corner of my bedroom. When we retired, we moved into a condo and because I didn't want to do yard work or shovel snow or anything like that anymore. And so I have this little nook in the corner of my bedroom, and that's where I write.
I think that's awesome. I think downsizing can be amazing. I just
It's hard to do.
upsized. I have a house on a mountain now, so.
Oh,
But let me just tell you, I avoided having yard work because I'm on a mountain
oh,
and there is not a yard, so to
okay,
speak, on my mountain. I
okay.
was like, I will let nature do its thing. Go nature, do your thing. Although I did plant tulips the other day. I was very proud of myself.
Oh,
So
good.
yeah, because I'm now in North Carolina instead of Florida, where tulips don't grow in Florida because it's basically a very hot swamp.
It's a furnace.
It is a furnace. It is a furnace. Absolutely. So you talked about signing up for writers courses. Have you created a little writing community for yourself?
I have. I have a couple ladies who were in the book in 90, and when it finished, we continued on and we meet on Zoom once a week. And one of them is from Colorado and one is from Arizona. And so we kind of meet in the afternoon, which works for all of us. Afternoon, my time. It's morning their time. And we support each other and cry when things go wrong and rant and rave and it's really nice.
That's very, very cool. What about reviews? Have you gotten a lot of reviews?
Not a fair number, not a huge number. Right away. So because Joe played baseball in the 1920s, there's a Society for American Baseball Research, and they reviewed the book. So I had to send like 7 copies to their reviewers, and they were overall positive, but I did make a couple mistakes. Like I had the wrong uniform for one of the teams, and they pointed that out, but it was like all good. And then at the end, it was like, but wouldn't be a contender for their, they had some kind of an award they gave out to the best, they call it the dead ball era, the best dead ball era baseball book. So it wouldn't make it because I made these couple of errors. And but overall the guy liked the book and liked the writing and things like that. So
well, the cool thing is, especially because you self-published, you can fix all that. You could go in and add the story about the ice cream.
I could
go in and add the story about the suit,
Mhm.
and then republish it and go, here's your book with your right colored
uniforms.
I shouldn't
You could
say
do like
that.
a
I'm gonna get
small
baseball
little
hate mail.
branch out. Like one of the novellas, you could just do all the stories you have collected from like your cousins and things. You could just like expand on those.
Mhm. I could. Lots of options.
There's lots of options. I agree. Okay. CR, I'm going to let you have the final question of this particular podcast, my friend. No pressure, but it better be good.
So because you self-published, how did you feel at the very end when you got to hold it in your hands?
Oh, I felt really good. I felt really accomplished. And I felt like this is something that a lot of people talk about doing, but don't do. Don't ever get to that point where you're holding it in your hand. Or like when I cut open the box from the publisher and pulled them out, and they looked like this, and they looked like a real book, and my picture was on the back, and it was just great. Yeah.
That was a good question. Okay, I'll give you points on that. Just that. Okay, Joyce, what advice would you give authors out there?
I would just tell them to show up. That's 90% of it. Like, show up at your computer, your laptop, your piece of yellow legal pad paper, your typewriter, whatever it is. Because like I said, like most of the people just don't do that. And that's most of it, showing up.
I agree with you 1000%. Okay, shameless self-promotion time. Hold up your book again.
Okay.
So it is called
Joe Harris, The Moon. And you can find out where to get it on my website, which is www.joyceamiller.com. And also, you can get it anywhere you buy books. They can order it for you. Any indie bookstore, Barnes and Noble has it, Target has it, all of them have it.
very, very cool. It has been awesome talking to you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. Okay, guys, this has been Drinking with Authors. I've been your host, Erica Lance. Our sponsor today has been Skunk Brothers Spirits. DWA10 is the coupon code, veteran and family-owned distillery in Washington. My co-host today has been the amazing C.R. Rice, who's only been scared by her dog 3 times during the podcast. And our guest today has been the awesome Joyce Miller. So we will see you guys next time.